not coming out, right? So, might change. I think that's cool.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on there, right?
Welcome everybody. Thanks a lot for coming along to the economics class. So this is our third or fourth event for the year, and yeah, great turnout. So as you all know, Paul Liggins will be doing the talk today. So Paul's a partner at Deloitte in moving recently down to Tasmania in the Hobart office. So I'd like to introduce Paul.
Thanks for the opportunity to talk to you today. Hopefully my voice will carry out, won't use the microphone too much. So the title of my talk today is a collection of random thoughts, and they are kind of random thoughts, but what I want to do is sort of take you through some observations I've got on the Tasmanian economy, some thoughts on current economic issues, and I guess a few tips for aspiring young economists based on some things I've seen over the years and some words of wisdom we've got from some of our new graduates in our mainland offices. So it's a collection of, as I say, some somewhat random stuff. But I guess one of the points I want to make here is the economic environment today is very different from when it was when I was a student here 30 years ago, and it's going to be very different in 20 years' time when you guys are economists. So understanding that what is the truth today and what everybody accepts as normal today is not going to be the case in 20 years' time, and wasn't the case 20 years ago. And that sort of emphasises the importance of understanding your economic fundamentals and being able to apply them to the situation at the time, because, as I say, what's happening now is not normal. What happened 10 years ago wasn't normal. What's going to happen in 10 years won't be normal. Things change very quickly, and as economists you sort of need to be able to recognise that and move with the times. I've got a bunch of slides. I don't know whether I'll get through all of them, but we'll see how we go. So just a bit of background, a bit of context. I work for Deloitte Access Economics. It's Australia's largest economics practice. We're in all state capitals now. We've just set up an office here in Hobart with a couple of people, and we're looking to grow that office over the next few years as the market builds and as we sort of consolidate a good client base down here. So we've always done work in Tasmania, but we've never had an office down here, but we've just opened one up in the last couple of days. So Deloitte Access Economics, hopefully you might be familiar with our work and some of our people. You'll see Chris Richardson on the telly a lot. In Harper, of the Harper Competition Review, you might be familiar with that piece of work from a couple of years ago. He's actually just left Deloitte Access Economics, but he was with us for a long time. Rick Symes is another partner with our team. He was Paul Keating's economic advisor back in the 80s and 90s, when a lot of the fundamental economic reforms that we all take for granted today were being pushed through. So he's got a wealth of experience. And of course, three new people we've got in the team. So Will Maher, you might know, was an honours student here last year. He's joined us in our Melbourne office. Hamish is going to be doing some work as a vacationer for us over Christmas, New Year, and Joe Taylor's joining us as a graduate next year. So one of the things I want to do in building up the Tasmanian Deloitte Access Economics office is give some opportunities to graduates of UTAS to join a quality economics firm here in Tasmania. One of the opportunities that I never had when I came through university a very long time ago now was there was no real opportunity for a graduate economist here. When I left uni, and I think about 30 people graduated in my year here. I think only one stayed in Tasmania and got a job in Tasmania. Everyone else went to Sydney, Melbourne or Canberra. So one of the key aims of Deloitte Access Economics coming down to Hobart is to provide some opportunities for local candidates, local graduates here. So we're looking forward to the opportunity to do that. Just quickly about myself. So as I say, I graduated here a long time ago in 1986, just with a bachelor's degree. I went to the TAB and played golf for about 6 months before I decided I better get a job. Moved to Victoria and worked for the Department of Water Resources, doing water policy. We did some interesting pricing reforms in the way water was charged for in Victoria. So it used to be that if you're a household, you paid a certain fee and you could use as much water in your house and garden as you wanted. There was no additional charge for the water you used. Now, as good economists, you'll know that's not a good outcome. So one of the things we were doing back then was getting user pays pricing in place for water, and that had a number of positive effects both on the economy and the environment in Victoria. So I did that for 10 years. I then went to work for the Essential Services Commission in Victoria, who regulate gas and electricity prices. There for a couple of years before I moved to PricewaterhouseCoopers and spent 10 years there, and now 10 years with Deloitte Access Economics. As I say, Deloitte Access Economics has been around for 30 years now. It's our 30th birthday in a couple of months. It was a separate organisation until 2010, when Deloitte bought the business, and hence Deloitte Access Economics. So that's me and who I work for. So let me talk a bit about the Tasmanian economy, and I guess a few observations on how it's changed over time and where it's going. So a lot of these graphs I'm going to show you comparisons between now and when I graduated 30 years ago, so you can see the nature of the change. And I guess that chart shows a few things. Firstly, the decline in the manufacturing sector in Tasmania over 30 years, it shrunk by more than half. Not surprising, I guess, with similar changes in the manufacturing sector across the country. Healthcare is the big industry that's picked up, about 50% bigger than it was in 1990. With healthcare, I guess Tasmania is the oldest, it's the poorest, it's the sickest, and it's the least educated of all the states, and that has implications for health spending, and that's why you see the increase there. So a few interesting things. Tourism, which generally fits in the accommodation and food sector there, hasn't changed much as a proportion of the economy, which is slightly surprising to me. I thought it would have grown. Electricity, gas and water has shrunk a fair bit since 1990, when the Hydroelectric Commission, as it was a single entity and arguably ran the state ahead of the Premier. But you can see there, I guess, the shifts in various elements of the economy, and they are quite pronounced shifts, and they do have very important implications for the performance of the economy. Another key chart, which does explain a lot about the Tasmanian economy, is population. So the grey bars there are the population histograms for 1984, when I started university. As you can see, typical pyramid shape back then. But if you look at the pyramid today, you can see it's sort of pink in the blue. It's pretty much straight down. And what that means is we now have a vastly greater proportion of people who are old and not in the workforce compared to what we had back then. The median age has increased from 28 to 42. The ABS statistical area where I live, the median age is 53. Tasmania is very old, and that has a lot of implications for how the economy works or doesn't work. You can see, for example, that back in 1984, the number of people who were aged 70 and above, there were twice as many 30-year-olds as there were people who were aged 70 back then. Nowadays, there's more people who are aged 70 than there are aged 30, and I'll explain the reason for that in a moment. And as with a lot of these things, there's a lot of interlinkages. So you can see Tasmanian population growth there peaked in about, the rate of growth peaked in about 1990, and ever since then it's been fairly low, certainly well below the mainland. We had negative population growth. I guess what that's shown between about 1990 and 2000 is reflects a lot of people in working age group, particularly 20 to 30, who left the state and never came back. I was probably one of the first people who did that, but that real hollowing out of people who were sort of 20 to 30 or even younger, 15 to 30, back in that time, who left the state, never came back, is one of the reasons why we've got this population graph that looks like it is at the moment. There's hardly anybody, not hardly anybody, but there are much fewer people in the working age, sort of prime of that life, 30 to 45 type situation, because we had so many people leaving the state in the 1990s who never came back. Now that's turned around a bit now. Our growth is close to 1%, still fairly below the mainland. But it does mean that we've got to keep attracting people to Tasmania in order to keep the economy healthy, because we just don't have that population of workers in that sort of 20 to 50 age group that other states do, which we need to support the number of old people in particular who have access to quite healthy government benefits and are going to need to continue to be supported by hard workers such as yourself in the future. So that's just a comparison of output growth in Tasmania compared to the rest of Australia. You can actually see through the 2000s, Tasmania did quite well compared to the mainland, given our much lower population growth. In recent years we've been below the mainland, but given our lower population growth, output per capita has been pretty similar to the mainland, so we haven't fallen too far behind on that score. Yeah, this is just an illustration of how much bigger the public sector is in Tasmania compared to the rest of the country. It's about 25 to 30% greater government share of the economy in Tasmania than elsewhere. Of course, again, taxes and GST revenues and those sorts of things are needed to support that high level of spending. Unemployment, so unemployment's been around 6% for a while, and we've sort of that's sort of what we come to accept the, I guess, normal rate of unemployment is at the moment. That wasn't the case 20 years ago. Unemployment was above 8% for many years, and we sort of accepted that was the normal rate of unemployment, I guess. No matter how well or how badly the economy did, it was sort of 8 to 10%. It's a lot lower now, and there are some reasons for that which I'll talk about. But again, just a real shift in the level of unemployment now versus 30 years ago. The participation rate is quite interesting. So this is the percentage of people who are in the labour force, either working or looking for work. You can see back when I was a lad, 75% of males were in the workforce and only 45% of females were in Tasmania. Female participation rate has been increasing gradually over time. Male participation rate has been falling over time. Could we get to a point where the number of females in the workforce is actually greater than the number of males? I wouldn't rule it out given the current trends. One interesting thing again is that whilst 30 years ago the Tasmanian participation rate was pretty similar to the rest of the country, it's now fallen sort of consistently 5% behind for whatever reason. But, yeah, it's fair to say when back in 1986 there were very few females in professional managerial jobs. Now it's entirely common, but as I say, it wasn't the case back then. Things may change in the future. The new normal changes. Another interesting thing is to look at full-time share of employment. So particularly if you were a male 30 years ago, you either had a full-time job or you didn't have a job. So the proportion has fallen from about 95% to 80% over time. It's fallen by a similar proportion for women. Again, Tasmania has a lower percentage of people in full-time employment than the rest of the country, partly due to the nature of the workforce. A higher percentage of people in retail and tourism activities in Tasmania compared to the rest of the country. Average weekly earnings is interesting. Grown over time, although levelled off very much recently. It's interesting to note the gap between male and female average weekly earnings has actually increased over time. That surprised me. I would have thought it would have come closer over recent years, but it has increased. I think one of the main reasons for that is that women, as I showed before, women are more likely to be employed part-time rather than full-time. and as a result, you get that much lower average weekly earnings number. But yeah, it still surprises me that the gap is that large, to be honest. Inflation. So again, back when I was a lad, inflation, somewhere in the range of 4 to 10% was typical. We haven't been close to that, apart from a short spike for 20 years. Since the Reserve Bank started to adopt an inflationary target of 2 to 3% and has managed the economy on that basis, it has done a good job in achieving that. But again, that was not the case a long time ago, and may well differ in the future as well. Exports. So this is an interesting chart. So total exports are the purple line on the top there, and as you can see, steadily increased over time, reached a peak in 2006, fell for several years, and has only started increasing again recently. You can see the composition down below with the extra exports to China, decreasing imports of Japan. So Tasmania, as a proportion of its economy, exports much more than other states, so we are more reliant on exports than several of the other states. Why did our exports decline for 10 years? Just skipping ahead, I think one of the key reasons is the exchange rate, and I don't think people appreciate quite the importance of the exchange rate to the success of the Tasmanian economy. There's obviously a lag between the exchange rate moving and exports changing in sort of a year to 2 years. But you can see from this graph, as the Australian exchange rate shot up towards the end of the 2000s and reached a peak in 2010, increasing gross state product then started to, it was negative in 1 year and then has been pretty flat at 1%. And if you go back to the going the other way, going back to the export graph here, you can see exports starting to fall through the early 2010s as the exchange rate stays high. Now, exports have recovered in 2014, 15, and that's exactly when the Australian dollar fell again. So I guess the importance of, to me, population, exchange rates, and other things that are largely declining the manufacturing industry as well, largely out of control of the Tasmanian state government, are the critical things that affect our economy here in Tasmania. We are very much at the mercy of external factors, and depending on what's happening to those external factors, they can make the current governments look brilliant or look terrible. But largely, to me, the troubles of the economy are unaffected by whatever government's in power. It's driven by those external things, and I think that's quite important to remember. Should the Australian dollar go back up again, and it could for a number of reasons, then we as a Tasmanian economy need to be prepared for that circumstance and be able to deal with it a lot better than we have in the past. Just to skip back to that, so interest rates again have been declining for 30 years, both nominal and real interest rates. When my peers were looking to buy their first houses out of university in about 1990, back in the days when you could buy a house a few years out of university, they were facing housing interest rates of 17 or 18%. That was just what it was back then. houses were a lot cheaper, but interest rates were spectacular. But since then, interest rates have come way down, and ever since the financial crisis in 2008, they've fallen further. So that's certainly the new normal. You guys won't know anything other than interest rates of 3 to 5%, but that's certainly not the case before, and can potentially change again. So a couple of other things that were different in the 1980s. Governments were way more involved in the economy. Government owned an airline. There was a two airline policy. Effectively, it was a duopoly. We all know what happens with duopolies: high prices, poor customer service. And I can very much vouch for the fact that was the case back in 1990. At Easter or whatever, you'd pay $1,000 to go to Melbourne and back. That is not the case anymore. Commonwealth government owned a bank. Commonwealth Bank. Why did the government own a bank in competition with other banks? Who knows, historical reasons, but the government owned a bank, owned the biggest bank in the country. ANL, the shipping line, the government also owned and operated a shipping line. Why did it need to operate a shipping line? Most ports were government owned, state government owned. Most airports were state or Commonwealth owned as well. Telstra, of course, was owned by the Commonwealth government. Energy businesses, most of which are now being sold, but were owned by state governments. Horizon is a rail operator in Queensland, former Queensland Rail, owned by the Queensland government. So the level of government intervention in the economy was massively greater than it is today, and that caused a whole lot of, distortions, the lack of competition in many of these industries, which has now been introduced since the competition policy reforms in 1990 meant that you would get crappy service. So if you wanted a telephone, you could have it, as they say, in any colour, as long as it's black, and it would take 3 months for Telstra to come and install it. That's the level of service you could expect back then. Energy businesses were very much. We had way more blackouts than we have these days with the privatised energy sector. Although it's still government owned in Tasmania, but unions very much ruled the roost in the energy sector. If they were unhappy with the government of the day, they'd shut down generation plants, and nobody would have any power, and that gave them great bargaining ability. So I guess again the message is these things that we all accepted, and the role of the government we accepted back in the 1980s is very much different these days. So there's other things that changed since then, as I mentioned. The ageing population does very much affect what's going on in the economy, and affects many elements of the economy. So health economics and the cost of health insurance to the government is a key issue these days. Why if we're now so much more affluent, more productive than we were 30 years ago, why is infrastructure not improved very much since the 1990s? It's because government is spending more and more money on the health sector that it did not spend 30 years ago, because the population is just so much older. As I mentioned before, the implications of changing labour markets with a much older population. It's probably true to say the political power of older people has implications for the economy as well. Because so many people who are over 50 or 60 vote, and there are so many, particularly in Tasmania, that means their preferences get imposed on government ahead of in some cases, the interests and wants of younger people like yourself. So plenty of examples of that. Pensions increase by the same amount as real wages increase from day to day, but unemployment benefits don't. That's one example. There's no death duties or inheritance taxes, even though economists would recognise those as fairly efficient taxes, but that's not a winning political ploy to impose those things. Generous superannuation arrangements for older people, defined benefits superannuation schemes, again, arguably advantaging older people to the detriment of younger people. Interesting, my father-in-law, quite a wealthy man, but he certainly has an expectation that he will, as a pensioner now, or an older person, he will get discounts from the government because he's old, and if he doesn't, he gets crook at it. So he gets discounts on public transport, for example, despite the fact that public transport goes nowhere near recovering its costs, and it should be, if you're going to apply Ramsey pricing, you'd actually charge pensioners more because they have fewer driving alternatives. But no, that we seem to have this entitlement mentality that I'm older, I want a discount from the government, and it's working age people who have to pay taxes to cover that sort of thing. So yeah, the political power of older people and the influence that has on the economy, to me, is quite an important thing. Scarcity, I mentioned this, it's quite interesting. When I started my career, if you wanted to take water out of a river to irrigate your crops, basically all you had to do was stick a pipe into the river and take that water. There was no issue with scarcity of water. These days, got a crisis in the Murray-Darling Basin, rivers are being drawn dry. There are now trading schemes for water. Water has a price, and it's sort of good, interesting problems for economists. But these sort of scarcity issues around water and land, road space, where there's lots of talk of congestion taxes that hasn't actually been implemented yet. Or several of these issues of scarcity weren't issues 30 years ago, but now, because of population growth, they are. We'll talk a little bit about international trade in a minute, and I have to speed up a bit to fit in my time. But so these were tariffs on some imported goods back in the 1980s. The tariffs now are sort of 0 to 5%. But what it meant was that shoes, clothes were hugely expensive back in the 1980s. I remember there was an interview on it was on the radio with someone who's low income, complaining about trying to send his kids to school and the cost of school uniforms and shoes and those sorts of things. Now, the reason that people on low incomes were struggling to pay for those sort of staples was because there were hugely protectionist tariffs back in those days, preventing imported goods from cheaper countries, which is, it's fine, protects a few people in the manufacturing sector, but it doesn't do much for the old Australian consumer. I guess a couple of other things you'll probably be aware of. Union power and ability to influence economic decisions has decreased. Union memberships has been declining for some time. The internet, obviously, and the sharing economy, these were not things 30 years ago, and they have a profound effect on the economy. I'll talk about them in a moment. And as I alluded to before, government delivery of services, 20 or 30 years ago, government was actually delivering the services themselves, not only of government services, but of services that competed in the private sector, and that resulted in all sorts of distortions in the private sector. I guess, again, related to scarcity, economists, I think, are now getting a better grip around externalities such as carbon and carbon pricing, waste and the need to reduce waste and impose waste levies to reflect the externality cost on society of disposing of waste. Politicians are yet to get on board that boat. Interesting, Tasmania is, I think, the only state in the country that doesn't have a waste levy for sending waste to disposal facilities. It's a very effective tool in other states to reducing waste, increasing recycling, but the Tasmanian government, for whatever reason, has not done so. But I think generally across the profession, economists are getting a better grip on recognising externalities. I still haven't seen any research, though, on what exactly the externality cost of a tonne of greenhouse gas is. There's been obviously lots of proposals for a carbon tax and putting a price, whether it's $20 a tonne or whatever, on carbon emissions, but I haven't actually seen any work that actually says the true cost to society of 1 tonne of extra greenhouse gas is X. That work, to me, would seem to be terribly important, but yet to be done. Since the 1980s, I think the intersection of economics and psychology has come into sharper focus. You'll be familiar, I hope, with Freakonomics phenomenon, I guess. It sort of suggests that economics underlies the decisions that everybody makes in a day-to-day and can explain most things, most decisions, most actions with regards to incentives and economic choices. So the book is very interesting, and there's a podcast I would hope that everybody in this room listens to. And I guess just on a side note, economics is way more interesting now than when I was studying. If we wanted to find out about something, we would have to go up to the library there. You'd have to thumb through a book that was 20 years old and maybe get some half-assed, aged information on economic issues of the day. You have access to so much more information, so much more immediacy, so much more discussion. You can listen to the Freakonomics podcast, Planet Money podcasts, The Economist podcast, free sources of information on a whole bunch of interesting issues around economics that we would have killed to have had access to when I was studying. So I guess nudge economics is the other psychology-based economic phenomenon, and sort of Richard Thaler and his people, I think he won the Nobel Prize in Economics on this subject before. And essentially, what he's saying is the opposite to what the Freakonomics guys are saying. And he's saying psychology explains everything, so people are not rational, they don't make rational economics decisions. You have to push them in certain ways, suggest things to them, because people do not make rational economic decisions. So, interesting dichotomy, the Freakonomics view of the world versus the nudge economics view of the world. Which one's right? Probably both of them, but very interesting debate. Another thing that wasn't really discussed when I was going through here was equity, so the distribution of resources in the economy. Sort of the theory was that you'll leave that to politicians and others to worry about. Economics should be concerned about efficiency and maximising overall output and outcomes. But I think certainly some of the work more recently by the IMF and with increasing income inequality across the globe, including Australia, there's a view that equity does matter, and if you don't have a more equal society, then efficiency suffers as well. So you can't necessarily have one without the other. that's something I think we're beginning to accept now, but wasn't necessarily the case 10 or 20 years ago. Economics in the internet, there's a bunch of work on the impact of the internet on the economy. We did some work now, and it's sort of 4 or 5 years old, suggesting that the Australian economy is $45 billion bigger as a result of the internet existing through, competition, reducing prices, improving efficiency, that sort of thing, innovation. But we would actually say that the benefits to the economy are actually much greater than you can sort of measure through the CGE modelling and the other techniques and models we have for picking up the influence of the internet. So massive improvement in customer choice, ease of communication, and use of the internet for recreational purposes. Those benefits, which largely don't get captured in GDP, are more important than the actual measured benefits, or more easily measured benefits to the economy. And as I say, these numbers are 5 years old and will be much larger now. Everybody's friend there. So are economists to blame for where we're getting ourselves into with Mr. Trump there? And can I say, for the purposes of the recording, these are personal views only and not those of Deloitte Access Economics. But you get idiots like Mr. Trump here. Why do we get that? Is it because economists have failed to communicate to the general population, to politicians, what the benefits of international trade are, and that imposing tariffs is not a good idea. There's been some work done to show that liberalisation of trade through removing the tariffs that I talked about before has increased GDP by $8,500 per family, and that is again through some CGE modelling, and arguably doesn't include a bunch of additional benefits that do come from liberalisation of trade. I think we have failed as a profession in terms of communicating the benefits of trade, and that has in part led to where we are at the moment. Australia's biggest exports iron ore and coal, but education is our third biggest export and our largest services export. Hugely important. Tourism, hugely important. And we need to remember that trade is not just about goods, it is increasingly about services, and making countries attractive places to visit, to study, to learn. Just an interesting observation, are trade agreements always good? Agreements to reduce tariffs very often result in the decrease in power to local interest groups such as makers of clothing and textiles and footwear, introduce competition, which is a good thing, but as the observation here goes, can entrench other barriers. So in all the negotiations, it's typically multinational pharmaceutical companies and others who can actually entrench other non-tariff barriers to trade in trade agreements, and can actually be the big winners from protections through trade agreements. So whilst trade liberalisation is generally a good thing, you need to bear in mind that it can sometimes create new set of winners and losers. Bouncing around again. These are some quotes from relatively famous economists. Both from Nobel Prize winners. Interesting to see which ones you agree or disagree with. Most of them American economists who are very much of a free market bent, anti-regulation. There's some of the quotes. I would argue that there is not enough regulation in the economy at the moment. That one of the problems with the US economy is the lack of regulation, clear property rights. Others, as you can see, take a very different view. Interesting, for the third one from the bottom, what you measure affects what you do. If you don't measure the right thing, you don't do the right thing. The corollary of that is that you only act on things that you can measure. And this raises the question of, when we measure the size of the economy, are we measuring the right thing? I mean, I'm sure it's something you've discussed, but we measure the gross domestic product, but that fails to pick up many things. I mean, as I mentioned, fails to pick up many of the important benefits of customer choice and the internet. It doesn't pick up unpaid work and the contribution that makes to the community. It doesn't pick up the economic contribution of charities to the community. We've been doing a lot of work with various charity groups trying to measure how exactly their work does improve outcomes of the community. If you intervene to a family, avoid children going into homes, that has a hugely positive long-term benefit to society, but that never gets captured anywhere, those benefits of charity. So I think one of the questions we need to grapple with as economists is, are we measuring the right thing when we measure the characteristics of an economy? I think that the answer is probably no. Tips for aspiring graduates. So I asked some of our new graduates what they would advise themselves 2 years ago. So here's their thoughts. Embrace the group work. I know when I was at university I hated group work. You should enjoy it, get involved in it as much as you can. When you get a job, you'll be involved in group work all the time. A lot of the people that you'll be working with will be difficult, it'll be challenging, unless you've had experience in the group work at university. It's going to be much more difficult when you get into the real world. Being an expert in Excel is when I went through university, there were no computers, there were no spreadsheets. I'm sure you all know how to use Excel. Be an expert and be really good at it. That is one of the most valuable things you have to take into your working life. Don't forget your economic theory. When we were advertising for positions in Deloitte Access Economics, and I would ask a question about an economic issue or something, I was surprised at how many people would come at it from a political perspective. So they say, the Liberal Party would do this, or we couldn't do this because of this. Try and get away from the political side of things and think, okay, what do economic principles tell you? Be really sound on your basic economic theory. Read more, as I said, listen to podcasts, read stuff that you don't agree with. I don't agree with 90% of the economic articles in the Australian newspaper, but I still read them. It's interesting to see the outside things. Never do a double finance and economics major. Now, I'm not sure whether I agree with this or not. 2 people in my team said this, so maybe it's true or not, I'm not sure. But I would advise if you are keen on your economics, do some interest in economics electives rather than finance. Always have a with conversation topic. We can talk to an interesting economic question that you can articulate to your friends. It's no use being right if you can't convince people of your arguments. It's fine to have be the smartest person in the room and to write learned papers that are technically correct. But if you can't convince somebody of the validity of your arguments, then you've lost the battle. So practice articulating your views, answering questions, being able to defend your positions. And finally, do honours or masters. The Deloitte Access Economics, we generally won't recruit people who have got an honours or masters degree straight out of university. When you do get a job, ask all stupid questions. When you're a new graduate, everybody expects you to know nothing. It's the base assumption. So ask the dumb questions. Don't go through wondering what people are talking about. Some other advice from our new graduates: make sure you've got a good work-life balance. At university, you don't have too many demands on your time other than study for most people. You can throw yourself into it. You can get very excited about throwing yourself into your job at the detriment of your friends and your social life and sporting activities. So don't forget that balance. Big corporate businesses aren't as big and scary as say, look, I know a lot of people say, I don't want to go work for a big firm, I'll get lost. Deloitte is a very big firm. We have 8,000 people in Australia, $2 billion in revenue. But everyone, we treat all our people as individuals, and the old days of sort of scary big four firms and scary government are gone. So don't rule out big businesses when you're looking for employees. Every email you send does matter, every form of communication matters. Be very careful with your emails, both as a student and when you're working. Potentially get hugging from slightest is very important. Second last one, it's a small world, and I've realised that very much coming back to Tasmania from Melbourne. The Economist network in Australia is small. Tasmania is very small as well. I've realised my 2 months back here from Melbourne, everyone is related to someone else, everyone knows someone else. You can't afford to get on the wrong side of people in Tasmania, or even more than you can't afford to jobs on the mainland. So always remember it's a small world. People you come across now, you'll see them again in 5 or 10 years' time. Don't burn any bridges. Don't your clients find you lying drunk in a garden bed outside the Dr. Syntax Hotel. Because you will run into your clients, you will run into your colleagues, you will run into your workmates in Tasmania, much more than you will on the mainland, for example. Finally, get used to dealing with imperfect data. For a lot of your assignments, you get data handed to you on a plate. We do hundreds, thousands of reports each year. We almost never have the data that we want to do our work, to provide our policy advice. Data is often misleading, it's difficult to collect, you can never get it in the form you want, it's expensive, you will never get, almost never get enough data to be able to have statistical confidence in your results. Get used to dealing with imperfect data, gaps in the data, misleading data, learn how to sift out data, interrogate the data. If things don't look right, they probably aren't right. Do your sniff test, do your stress tests around the data, because lots of policy advice, lots of government decisions are made on data that is not reflective of the real world, and understanding just how good data is or how bad your data is very important to making economic decisions. Right, that is it. That was a very rambling and discussion on a bunch of like unrelated topics. I'm happy to take any questions. I think we've got 5 minutes left or so, Hamish, on anything that I've stumbled over here or anything else you might like to ask me about the economics profession.
Just got a question about the government-owned business. As we may know, last year there was a case about water takeover.
Yeah.
So some people just worry about the government-owned business, the efficiency or the services they provide. And on the other hand, another people also worry about wants to take over a company. And because they're a for-profit company, of course, so they also worry about if there would be a possibility to increase of the price. So what would be your opinion of the government-owned business?
Yeah, so that's an interesting one. So Tasmania at the moment is owned by councils, so it's effectively a public company owned by councils. All the state government takeover would be is effectively got a public business owned by the state government instead of councils. So I'm not actually sure what the transfer from councils to government will do from an efficiency perspective. It could be that one of the difficulties you have with Tasmania at the moment is councils themselves having disagreements with each other over how Tasmania should be run. Perhaps they're prioritising dividends from Tasmania because they need those dividends to prop up their local government operations. If that's the case, then maybe there is benefits from transferring to the state government. But it's a monopoly business, and we can't introduce competition nowhere in the country. We have direct competition as far as water and sewage services go, although, for example, in Melbourne's actually cut up into 3 separate areas. You've got 3 different water companies, and they compete against each other by comparison, so you compare the performance of one to another, but you don't have that in Tasmania. You've got one business, not just good to have one business to get some economy of scale. But to me, any real benefits, any real change to Tasmania have to come through the regulator, the Office of the Tasmanian Regulator, that effectively approves their prices, sets their performance standards, putting greater pressure on Tasmania to step up to the market and be efficient. Get together a good corporate plan that, in my view, Tasmania until recently hasn't had a very good strategic plan. They're not being clear about what they're going to do with their treatment plans, what the priorities are, water and sewage. So I think there's a bunch of issues there that need to be cleaned up or dealt with that aren't necessarily going to be solved by transfer from councils to government.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks for that, Paul. That was really awesome to have a nice overview like that. Especially with your background, I suppose. Where do you see the kind of sub-discipline of resource economics, and whether you've seen kind of more of an emphasis in what you do at Deloitte with that area, and where you may see that
area.
Yeah, we definitely see it as a growing year. In fact, we might recruit resources.